So it is a very special day here in Ukraine. It is Independence Day. August 24th is the day the Verkhovna Rada signed the Declaration of Independence, separating them from the Soviet Union and indeed from living under the thumb of Moscow. It is a very important day on the calendar nowadays, even more so after 2014 and certainly now during the period of this full invasion. They are fighting and dying in Ukraine to maintain their independence, so they don't take this lightly. And I find similarities here between the country of my birth, America, a former colony of an empire, and Ukraine, now a former colony of an empire. Along the main street here in Kiev, the capital, they have lined rows and rows and rows of Russian armor to mark the day. And then obviously also I did the vlog earlier about how they changed the shield of the Statue of the Motherland, which overlooks Kiev, away from the hammer and sickle and to the Ukrainian trident, the trizub. So people are out, they're enjoying a lovely, bright, warm day with their families. Many of them are wearing the traditional Ukrainian embroidery, the vyshyvanka here. I've seen folks wearing the vyshyvanka proudly on Independence Day. And so I thought I'd just kind of come out and just shoot a quick little vlog here on what has become a very solemn but also joyous occasion for Ukrainians, and that is Independence Day. See all the flags and the vyshyvankas.
Hello.
You know.
Glory to Ukraine.
Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
This is about pride in your nation state. That's what Ukrainian nationalism is. The Muscovites would have you believe, obviously, that it is a fascist nationalism. It's a sense of exceptionalism at the expense of one or another ethnic group. Well, that's simply not true. This is a multi-ethnic country that became multi-ethnic because of various empires passing through here, unlike Moscow, which became multi-ethnic through conquest. No, these people are celebrating today their independence, but their sense of self and their sense of being a free, independent nation state, separate from any imperial dominance. So, constant gardening, as it always is, this is not a fascist state. This is not a Nazi state, as the Muscovites would have you believe. This is a country that, after many centuries of oppression, has finally come into its own, independent and free. And it is a nation state where the people believe in the idea of being Ukrainian. That's what this is all about. You know, and while I'm at it, actually, there's another topic to discuss here, and I've seen criticisms normally by those who are actually against the Ukrainians and their war of defense. And the criticism that I have heard upon occasion is, you know, we're sending all this money to Ukraine and we're told that they're suffering, but there they are out in the streets, you know, going to cafes and restaurants and bars. And, you know, how dare they? It's, you know, you're supposed to be suffering, not enjoying yourselves. Well, don't you think for a half a second that maybe they're compensating for something? There's such a desperation for normalcy. There's such a desperation for not suffering under the air raid sirens and the ubiquitous casualties and people walking around with missing limbs. You know, they need to hold on to normalcy. It's a desperate attempt to, at least for a moment, ignore the fact that this awful war is happening on their soil. So, you know, people who haven't been in a war really have no right and no legitimacy to criticize people who are. Праздник. So now you see here also, in addition to the various pieces of armor that they've got along the main drag, that behind me there, this downed drones and other pieces of paraphernalia that the Russians brought with them but won't be taking home. Aside from Independence Day, I think I wanted to touch on another topic briefly, because as I say, I'm filming this on the 24th, the day after we learned the news that Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner mercenary group, died apparently when his plane came down on a flight between Moscow and St. Petersburg. A very suspicious event. But as I have been saying all along, and I still hold by it, while Prigozhin may have been the first high-profile casualty internally within Russia, he will not be the last. Just as I do not think that Moscow believed that there would be carcasses of their armor on Khrushchevsk 18 months into this conflict, well, there it is. And just as though they didn't expect this, I don't think they expected the strain that is going to happen when they lose this war. The center of gravity that is the Kremlin can no longer hold. And the orbit around which the power structures, including Prigozhin, circled around that orbit, that is no longer a guaranteed thing. They are going to have to contend with this. Now, Prigozhin himself, having been taken off the battlefield, that's a good thing. He was a terrible person, a thug, a criminal. People talk about how he used to be a hot dog salesman, and he kind of rose from the ranks of that. He was never a hot dog salesman. He had hot dog stands adjacent to markets in St. Petersburg, which are notorious for centers of the black market. It was a front. It was all a front. But eventually, of course, he rose to prominence because he was buddies with Putin. There will be, no doubt, conspiracy theories about his fate, because it's well known that he liked to indulge in kind of this idea of false identity. So maybe he has staged this whole death sort of thing. We don't know. And in addition to that, at time of recording, it's way too early to speak in specifics about what has happened to Prigozhin. But one way or the other, he's no longer part of this war, and that's good. But I don't want to spend any more time in this vlog talking about Yevgeny Prigozhin, an awful human being. Not on a day like today, which is so glorious and so happy and joyous that I had to participate. Went home and got my Vyshyvanka. This day means a lot. It is a recognition that no longer is Ukraine a colony of a despotic, oppressive regime like the one that Moscow enforced here for centuries. No, finally, this is a country with its own future and its own story to tell. And I am humbled and grateful to be here for it. So, for any Ukrainians that are watching this vlog, happy Independence Day to you. And for everybody else, please keep supporting Ukraine. It is a country that, after so long, deserves support and appreciation and respect. Slava Ukraini. I Героям слава.